Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're systematically unpacking a massive, highly detailed Treasury briefing delivered by Secretary Scott Bessent. You know, press briefings like this one, they can be totally chaotic, jumping wildly from topic to topic based on who happens to be shouting the loudest in the press room. So we're going to use structured visuals to cut right through that political noise and get straight to the facts, the policies, and the strategies the administration is laying out. Because honestly, when a briefing covers everything from global oil markets to a specific state governor's tax threats, all in the span of 30 minutes, it's so easy to get lost in the weeds. To really grasp the administration's overarching strategy, we have to ask, what is their core focus, actually? We've got to organize the chaos.
So, here's our roadmap. We're organizing this briefing into 4 distinct portfolios: the domestic economy, geopolitics and Iran, AI and digital currency, and finally, political controversies.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1, the domestic economy and Trump accounts. Right out of the gate, Secretary Bessent highlighted a pretty staggering wealth gap. 38% of Americans have absolutely no exposure to equities. Think about that. That means they don't own stocks, they don't have investments in the market, and because of that, they just aren't sharing in the innovation and capital growth of the American economy. The Treasury is framing this as a critical wealth gap, and they've announced a highly specific plan to try and close it.
To create what Bessent called a generation of shareholders, the administration is launching a brand new initiative called Trump Accounts. And here's how it actually works. Children born during this administration will receive a $1,000 seed investment straight from the Treasury. This is all going to be managed through a new app that even includes financial learning modules. Bessent was visibly enthusiastic about this, calling it literally the most important benefit for young people since the GI Bill. And get this, the app has already seen a massive 6 million signups ahead of its official launch on July 4th.
Moving from investments over to taxes, the Secretary laid out the impact of the administration's recent tax policies, calling it a historic filing season. We're talking about a massive 62 million tax returns, that is 44% of all returns, utilizing at least one of the new signature tax cuts. This strategy clearly targets specific worker demographics. We've got no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and reduced taxes on Social Security, where, by the way, 85% of seniors paid zero. He also highlighted auto-deductibility on U.S. car loans, and, keeping with the political nature of the briefing, Bessent explicitly pointed out that these specific programs were entirely opposed by Democratic lawmakers.
Bessent then anchored his domestic summary with some hard numbers to argue ongoing economic resilience. We're looking at a steady 2.6% real GDP growth over the past 4 quarters, with strong projections hitting 3.8% for Q2. Unemployment, that remains low at 4.3%. Meanwhile, average 401ks are up almost $30,000, and the average tax refund jumped 11% to nearly $3,300. But, with all this growth, you have to ask, what about the national debt? Well, the Treasury's stated goal is to reduce that massive $1.8 trillion deficit down to just 3% of GDP. How exactly? Bessent claims they can get a huge head start by uncovering and eliminating an estimated $500 billion a year in sheer government fraud. Okay, let's shift gears to Section 2, the world stage, covering geopolitics, Iran, and oil. The absolutely crucial point here is the administration's stance on Iran amid these ongoing negotiations. Bessent firmly laid out their non-negotiable terms for any diplomatic agreement. He made it crystal clear, no sanctions relief is happening without these specific conditions being met first. In his view, the administration's kinetic economic pressure is exactly what successfully forced Iran to the negotiating table in the first place, a feat he claims prior administrations just failed to do. To help clarify the sheer complexity of these Iranian negotiations, he broke their government structure down into 3 distinct pillars. You've got the elected government, the military wing and the IRGC, and the religious clerics. Bessent noted that because recent defensive strikes took out top layers of leadership, internal communication between these 3 pillars is basically failing right now. And as you can imagine, that is drastically complicating both the ceasefire and the nuclear talks. The Secretary also detailed some very aggressive ongoing global sanctions. He outlined strict penalties for anyone refueling or assisting state-owned Iranian airlines, literally framing them as outlaws. He then quickly touted unprecedented actions against the largest Russian oil companies, Lukoil and Rosneft. But, despite all these global disruptions, Bessent assured the public that the U.S. energy supply remains globally dominant.
He noted U.S. oil prices actually dropped 10% in May, referenced thousands of ships ready to deploy from the Gulf, and confirmed directly from a morning phone call with the Omani ambassador that there will be absolutely no tolls or blockages in the critical Strait of Hormuz. Let's move into the future for Section 3, AI and digital currency. Now, the Treasury actually holds a deeply bifurcated view on digital finance. It's fascinating. On one hand, they are dealing a hard no to government-tracked central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, citing deep privacy and tracking fears. But simultaneously, they're actively supporting legislation like the Clarity Act to embrace decentralized stablecoins. The overarching goal here is to bring digital assets onshore, keeping them safely regulated right here in the United States, rather than letting the industry operate like some offshore Wild West. When addressing the massive infrastructure and security risks surrounding artificial intelligence, Bessent was incredibly confident. He stated point blank that the U.S. is the undisputed AI superpower, leading China substantially. And to maintain that massive lead without stifling innovation, the Treasury is closely partnering with major large language model labs. He really emphasized the need to find that exact right calculus between rapid technological innovation and national safety. Finally, we arrive at Section 4, political controversies and clashes. One of the most persistent, maybe even unexpected questions from the press corps was about proposed legislation to create a brand new $250 bill featuring the face of the current president. Reporters aggressively pressed the secretary on whether the Treasury was already taking steps to make this a reality, which prompted a very precise legal explanation from Bessent. Basically, Bessent directed the room's attention to the actual letter of the law. He explained that current U.S. currency law strictly mandates that no living person can be depicted on U.S. currency, period. However, he did admit that the Treasury routinely prepares designs in advance just in case legislation changes down the line. So while they might have mock-ups ready to go, he emphasized that they are strictly bound by current currency law unless Congress officially passes a new bill to bypass it. The briefing then veered into some intense, ongoing investigations. The secretary referenced a massive breach where 400,000 tax returns, including the president's, were leaked by what he called an IRS bad actor. He confirmed that the Department of Justice is handling the resulting settlements via a new anti-weaponization fund. On top of that, he highlighted a major shift in tax guidance, a new IRS Form 990 requirement designed to force nonprofits to know exactly who they are funding. This holds them legally accountable if their grant recipients engage in violence, a move he specifically noted was tied to ongoing probes into the funding of groups like Antifa. And that DOJ anti-weaponization settlement fund actually sparked one of the most viral moments of the entire briefing, when a reporter asked Secretary Bessent for his response to California Governor Gavin Newsom's threat to impose a 100% state tax on any Californian residents who receive payouts from that federal fund. Bessent didn't offer some lengthy policy breakdown. He just offered this blunt, singular quote: "There's no cure for stupid." So as we wrap up this explainer, we really have to zoom out and look at the big picture. From giving thousands of dollars to newborns via Trump accounts, to drawing strict nuclear red lines with Iran, to reshaping how digital currency and AI operate on a global scale, these are massive, paradigm-shifting policies. The real question you should take away from all this is how will these sweeping, highly ambitious strategies realistically survive and function in our current era of extreme political polarization? It's a question that will undoubtedly define the years to come.